Just a little bit about Eircom and who we are. First of all, the name. Well, any telecommunications company has to have a com in the brand name. The Air comes from the Gaelic for Ireland is Éire, so hence the Eircom name. We like to think, and I think we are, the leading provider of telecommunications in Ireland. We're in a fixed line business only. We did have a mobile wing called Aircell, which we sold to Vodafone a number of years ago. This is the problem that we're trying to solve. Okay, so across the top, we have handovers from planning to design to the project managers who then interface with operations, and there are a number of specialities in the operation areas. Okay, going down along, we have our platform programs, which were the switchers and the routers that we talked about. We have our transport network programs. We have a broadband program, and we have power programs, and we've other programs there as well. The difficulty is that these programs are all interdependent to some degree. For example, there's no point in having a switch or transmission if you don't have power. So trying to coordinate those across the whole organization is a difficulty. So it's difficulty. We had no real visibility of these interdependencies before we implemented Concerto. Okay, the next slide. So what we felt we needed was a solution which would give us a single system, coordination across the programs, something to manage our resources, something to allow us to do project tracking and reporting. But the key issue that we felt in terms of getting control was visibility and what we call jeopardy management. Now, up to now, you'll notice that I haven't said anything about TOC or CCPM. And the point I want to make here is that in terms of trying to get the buy-in from senior management, what we had to do was use terminology and speak the language that they understand. We find it very, very difficult to get across some of the subtler parts of CCPM. Okay, next slide. So why did we go with the TOC solution? Well, first of all, I had some limited experience in applying TOC principles. This was very much a sort of a paper and pen exercise, but we got a lot of good results in a service delivery chain, working on the service delivery chain, providing data circuits. And we saved the company quite a lot of money in exposure to penalties from the regulator on this. We like the whole idea of buffer management. By the way, do people understand the term jeopardy management? I mentioned it to some people and they didn't know what it was. But essentially, it's an early warning system that when your project is running into jeopardy. We had looked at other project methodologies, but what we liked particularly about the CCPM approach was that we could build project templates, that we have a large number of projects, not terribly complicated projects, but a large volume of them going at any given time. And so to avoid all of the issues of replanning every time, we were able to use templates, and we found that very, very powerful. And then we like the unique approach to the resource management. We went with Concerto because basically Sanjeev and Ray are bloody good salesmen. And that was the easy bit. When we came to negotiate price, we found that Sanjeev was a very good negotiator on price as well. But truly and serious, what we did find was that they knew what our issues were and they understood our issues. Even though I don't think they had a lot of background in the telecommunications business. But the experiences that I had experienced on the data supply process was mirrored by what Sanjeev and Ray were saying to us. Next slide. So the challenges then that we're facing is, and I'm not going to go through a blow-by-blow account of how we fixed these, but the first one was that we weren't really in pure project management. Essentially, we were in a very much process type organization, almost equivalent to a manufacturing business. And that caused a lot of problems in terms of what's a project, what's a process, and a lot of debates around that. We had a very distinct culture split between the designers, the project managers, and operations. The operations people tended to be technicians, have been around the company quite a while. The designers tended to be younger people, relatively recent from college, and very, very focused on technology, not operations. They wanted to learn the technology and so on. We also have a headcount reduction program that's been going on for quite a while. And it's a voluntary reduction program, and it has been going on for a while. I mean, that has been stressed over and over again. But nevertheless, in that climate, one of the issues of trying to subordinate work, in other words, control the work that's going into the system, is a real challenge. People want to get in. It's very difficult to hold people back from getting projects in, and that's still an issue for us. It's not something that we resolved, but it's something that we're continually working on. A big one before we got the system was we've lots of systems, and the last thing anybody wanted was another system. What's so special about this one? What's it going to do? Will it integrate? And all sorts of issues there. And really, we got over that by just having a strong champion at the management level who basically bullied his way through. We had several previous change initiatives from TQM back in the 90s, two recent very big BPR programs. We had a sojourn into Six Sigma around the same time that we started the CCPM project. We got over that by making the CCPM project the Six Sigma project as well, and produced the answer before we asked the questions. And we had a strongly unionized environment. I should say actually that the company, 29% of the company is now owned by the employees. So we're in what we call a partnership environment. What that means is you've got to do a lot of talking. The next. Okay, so we went with the transport networks area first. So we only took one of those programs and went with those as a pilot for all of the reasons there. I mentioned we had a strong champion at senior level. And coincidentally, he had come from the transport network, the transport program background. So he understood the issues there, and he understood the benefits of it. So that was one less body we had to convince. As also we were able, as I mentioned, it's quite a complex. Even though I've shown three simple arrows, there's quite a complex and confused picture around processes. And by putting a boundary around the transport network area, we were able to limit the impact and avoid situations where I think somebody talked this morning where projects external to the program were having huge impact. As I mentioned already, we had two project types. One was customer driven, where basically we had drop dead due dates. But the bulk of them were capacity driven and really phased on the programs are phased on a quarterly basis, mainly to make sure that we're keeping up with our capital expenditure control and so on. And that gave us traditionally what happened because of that quarterly driven process. We had a lot of batching going on, so it was interesting again to hear the comments this morning about the importance of reducing batch sizes. But basically what you had is a quarterly cycle, planners putting a program together, designers working on that and so on. We have now moved very much to, as soon as the planner is ready, it goes on to the design, and we're very much in a flow-through type situation. We also happen to have a legacy system. There was two benefits from that. One was that we had something to benchmark against, The other one was that if we were going to go for a single system, this was the prime candidate to roll it out. So I had a sizable chunk of budget that I could get my hands on, and we got our hands on that instead of rolling the other one out. So that was a big help in terms of getting approval to go ahead. These are the figures. We got I should emphasize now, this was around the pilot figures. We got after a frightening start, we got a pretty good turnaround in due date. I couldn't resist leaving the 100% one up there. It's not quite that good. We're probably running around sort of 88 to 90% on average at the moment. And we've had some slippages up and down from week to week because we're now rolling it out into the power area and into the platforms area. So that has created a lot of distractions and quite a bit of noise. But we're quite comfortable that we know what we're at. And I'd stress, I think, that the system in particular maintains a real focus on the issues. Next one. Cycle time has reduced pretty dramatically. I was a bit worried about this slide initially because we were already getting pretty rapid reduction in cycle time. So what happened? And I suppose it was fortunate. I probably was a little bit skeptical about Six Sigma, but one of the things we had done was analyse down our project types. And what we did see was that in a lot of the early cycle reduction was due to we had a very high volume of long cycle time projects at that stage anyway. They were very much dependent on fibre. And as everybody knows, in the telecom business, there's a lot of fibre out there that's not being utilised at the moment. So the amount of those projects had fallen off considerably. So we're pretty happy. The percentage figure I'm talking about is from the start of CCPM when we implemented. The next one, please. This is the program performance, and that is actually at 100%, which is something that we never did before. And what you actually see is that even though we have some projects that are still maybe coming in a little bit beyond the due date, they're still coming in well before the end of the quarter. The other thing that we've noticed is we've lost this hockey stick effect that we used to get at the end of each quarter, where we had a rise in unfinished projects and a mad rush to try and get them in. That has all but disappeared in the transport network area. Next slide, please. So what do we see were the key enablers in terms of moving the project along? I'd echo again, I think people have been saying it all morning, you need a champion at senior level. And without that, I think you're unlikely to succeed. The pilot approach, I think, again, was essential. First one, a very pragmatic one. It was the only way we were going to sell it. Nobody was going to take a risk with a full rollout. It was also essential, I think, in trying to get some quick hits, which we did. But even more so, I think that if we had tried to apply it across all of the programs, we would have just killed ourselves. I mean, there were so many internal issues that implementing the methodology in the system threw up around our processes. One simple one which dogged us for quite a while, people on the ground knew about it, management didn't know about it, was actually ownership of the projects. Did the design engineer own the project, or did the project manager own the project? And the reality is that neither of them owned the project. People on the ground understood it, but the visibility the Concerto gave us brought it to a situation where management had to also acknowledge it, because it came up time and time again on the discussions. The experienced change manager we're with, that's me. I think one of the key issues here, I'd say, about the change is I think I used the term to we went through the prerequisite tree at one stage, and I used the term to Ray called Aircomitis, and he said, "What's that?" And that's what I'm talking about there. There are a lot of cultures within the organisation, as you can imagine, coming from civil service through to public listed company. Actually, we've done that twice. So there's been a lot of new blood coming in, a lot of old blood there, and a lot of, as I said, union issues as well there. And the key issue here, I think, was to find the key influencers. Now, the key influences are not necessarily the leaders on the organisation chart. It's to be able to sort out, find out who are the actual influencers in the area. And I don't think we could have done that without an insider view of that. It was a difficult one, I think, to do externally. Finally, I think the concerto system, what I would say as well is that there were two main halves, I guess, if you like, to the pilot. One was the pre-implementation stage, where it was getting senior management to buy into it, trying to explain the concept, trying to get budget sign-off and all of those good things. And then there was the implementation. And what we found was that once we got started, and I don't want to sound like a salesman for Sanjeev, but the system did really drive the implementation, because now we had a focus and we had a visibility. Okay, next one. So in summary, where are we now? Well, first of all, the KPIs, again, that's another Aircomitis, key performance indicators. They've improved and are continuing to improve as we hoped they would. In terms of ticking the boxes against the solution, we believe that we've got all of those boxes ticked. The buffer management is really, we're finding it really, really powerful. Okay, and one of the issues that has come, that has struck me about it is, we had a lot of systems that claim to do jeopardy management, but what they're doing is they're doing jeopardy management when the project is already late. What CCPM is doing and what the system is doing, it's warning right from the first task. We're getting warning. And usually, with most of the traditional systems that I've seen, generally you're probably 50% into the project before you get the warning.